Hi, we'll be discussing today the third head of income, that is profit or gain from the business or profession. This is one of the important head of income. It gives a minimum 15 marks in your exam. Sometime I've been checked out that this chapter may give you 30 to 35 marks. So this is very important one. What is the main problem with this chapter? Yeah, I don't know that this chapter is very lengthy. Yeah, this is very lengthy. The content is very vast. So to make it simplified, what I decided, I will classify this chapter into 8 small groups. Correct. So the first group of that is the chargeability and the computation of income under the PGBP. What this talks about? This simply talks about the when income is to be taxed under the PGBP, correct, and how to compute the income under the PGBP. The next part is expenditure, which is to be allowed under the PGBP. That's from 30 to 37. Next one is expenditure which is not allowed as deduction under the PGBP. So expenses are debited in your books of account but not allowed under the PGBP. So there are certain sections under this part. The fourth part of the PGBP is there are certain profits, deemed profits. What is mean by deemed profit? You have taken expenses as a deduction under any of the preceding previous year, and then later on you have done the recovery of such expenditure. Then what would happen? Then such recovery would be taxable under the PGBP under section 41. Next one, there is certain we need to discuss the sections as well under the PGBP. So the chargeability and the computation, it comes under the section 28 and 29. The expenses is to be allowed under the PGBP, it is from 30 to 37. The disallowances sections are somewhat scattered. 40 small a, 40 small b, 48.2, 48.3, 48.5, 48.7 and the 43b. These are some certain disallowed, the expenses get disallowed under these sections. These are very important. Next, the deemed profit section is section 41. Next, this is the first 4 part of the PGBP. The next 4 parts start with some special provisions. What is the special provision? That is under section 43. Next, maintenance of the books of accounts and the audit, to whom it is compulsory to maintain the books of accounts under the PGBP and to whom it is compulsory to get the books of account audited. That is been covered under this next topic. The next small topic is a method of accounting. Yeah, and the taxability of the certain special incomes. And the last one is a presumptive, and this is a very interesting. Whatever we are done with from the section 28 se leke up to 28 से 41 में, correct, we had computed your income. The presumptive says that whatever the income you had computed, I will compare that with the presumptive. Irrespective, this is the overriding section. The presumptive taxation are the overriding on the whole of the PGBP sections. So it says that whatever your profit is, I will consider as an 8% of your turnover as a profit, presumed as an 8%. Presume means it could not be actual, but I will assume it is an 8%. Again, just an example. So these are the presumptive sections. They are also very important. So first, the special provision mein, there are 43A that deals about the foreign exchange, 43C, 43CB and the 43C, 43D. These are all the special provisions. Maintenance of the books of on audit is covered under the 44A and the 44AB. Next, method of accounting is under section 145A and the 145B. 145A something different, na? हमारा sequence कहाँ से 28 से लेके up to the 44. It's all chunk is of a PGBP. Correct? We'll start with the 28 and we'll finish up to the 44. So 44 talks about the presumptive taxations. In that, for the resident, there are different sections, and for the non-resident, there are different sections. And there is one more, that is a 44C, that is a taxation of the branches of the foreign companies. So this is all about the whole PGBP. Yeah, small 8 parts, we'll divide it and we'll start with the first in that. what is the function and the chargeability and the computation, and that is given under the section 28 and 29. 28 talks about the chargeability when income is to be taxable under the PGBP, and 29 talks about the computation, how to compute the profit or gain under this head. So the next one, the chargeability, that is one of the important one, because chargeability will decide it out whether the income is to be taxed under the PGBP or not. So section 28 talks about the chargeability, in that the first one is a profit or gain from the business or profession. Correct. So we need to define what is mean by business, and we need to define it out what is mean by the profession. Correct. So the business is nothing but any trade, commerce, or any adventure in the nature of the trade, commerce, it call as in a business. What is in a prerequisite of the business or the profession? The prerequisite, there should be in a profit motive. Correct. If not, any activity has been carried out without a profit motive, then income cannot be taxed under the PGBP. The next, whether the income tax or whether the PGBP distinguish the business or the profession? No as such. Whole of the provision is similarly applicable to both of them, whether it is in a business or the profession. There are very few sections where it had except that is specifically applicable to the business and that is specifically applicable to the profession. Very few sections are there. Next, export incentive. Correct. This is also to be taxed under the section 28. Section 28 says that all the following list of the income is to be taxed under the PGBP. So in that, the next one is export incentive. Export incentive, it could be in the form of your duty drawbacks, it could be in the form of the subsidies, or it could be in the form of the license, import license. You had sold out the import license and you got some income. So that is also to be taxable under the PGBP. All the exports benefits are to be taxable under the PGBP. Next, the perquisite. We had heard this word under the salary. What is meant by perquisite? That is a non-monetary benefit received by the employee from the employer. Correct, is to be taxable under the head of salary. Now, what is a perquisite in the terms of the PGBP? If the person had received certain non-monetary benefit, correct, from that non-monetary benefit should arise out of his business or profession, then it is to be taxable under the PGBP. Very simple example, the dealer is given some target by the company. Correct. If the dealer achieve that target, the company will be giving some gift. It could be in the form of a car, or it could be in the form of some gold coins or anything. Correct. So that is to be taxable in the hands of a dealer, not as in a gift, not as an iOS. That is to be taxable under the PGBP. Why? Because that has been received, that non-monetary benefit has been received out of his business. Correct. So it is to be taxable under the PGBP. The next, it is in a key man. What is mean by, first of all, key man? A person very important to the business. It could be an employee or it could be anyone. Correct. But that is very important, having a connection with my business, very crucial to me. So his life is very crucial. So the person has taken a life insurance in the name of that person. All the premium that whatever he had paid would be allowed as deduction under the PGBP. अभी बात आती है maturity पे. Correct. If the sum at the time of a maturity has been received by the person who had taken it. For an example, the Mr. A had taken a life insurance on the name of a B. The B is a crucial employee or is in very crucial connected to my business. Correct. At the time of maturity, if the B receives that proceeds, in LIC there is a term basic sum assured along with the bonus. Correct. If it is received by the Mr. A, the full amount is to be taxable under the PGBP, because again this is arising out of his business. Next, 35AD, what is the section is for? The section is for some specified businesses, which is essential for the Indian economy. Correct. If you done any of the capital expenditure, whole is allowed as whole of the capital expenditure is allowed in the first year itself as an expenses under section 35AD. So now the question arises, if I sold it out, such capital asset has been transferred, destroyed, demolished or the sold, and I received on account of such, if I receive any sum, maybe in a kind or maybe in a cash. Correct. So that is to be taxable under the PGBP. It won't be taxable under the capital gain because deduction kisne diya? The PGBP had given a deduction. If it has been transferred, demolished, correct, destroyed, any sum received on any account, it is to be taxable under the PGBP. That is all about the asset which you are using for the specified business and for which the deduction has been allowed under section 35ED. Next, we will be looking out in detail that section. Next, the partnership firm, that is very interesting. The partnership firm, what are the things the partnership firm pays to their partners? Yeah, they pay an interest, they pay the remuneration, correct. Again, what they pay? Yep, share of the profit. All these three things in the different name will be paid by the firm to the partner. Now talking about how the taxability would be there in the hands of the partner. So the first, the interest, remuneration, bonus, commission by whatever name paid by the partnership firm to the partner is to be taxable under the PGBP. It is not to be taxed under the salary. We had seen there is no employee-employer relationship, so it should not be taxed under the head of salary. The interest not to be taxed under the IOS. It is to be taxed under the PGBP. What about the share of profit? On the share of profit, already the firm had paid the tax on the 30%. So it is exempt in the hands of partner. The share of profit is exempt, but the interest remuneration is taxable in the hands of the partner under the PGBP, not under the IOS, not under the salary. Correct? So try to understand interest, remuneration or bonus, commission, brokerage paid by the firm to the partner is always to be taxed under the PGBP. Now, this is taxable in the hands of partner. So, try to understand what is the treatment in the hands of the firm. There is a firm now the firm is paying, what are the things? It could be paying interest, it could be paying a remuneration, or it could be paying a share of profit to the partner. For the firm, it is an expenditure, correct. And for the partner, it is an income. For the firm, it is an expenditure, and for the partner, it is an income. So whether that would be allowed as a deduction? Yeah. For the firm, it would be allowed as a deduction. For the firm, the expenses would be allowed as a deduction. And it would be taxable in the hands of a partner as an income. एक के लिए खर्चा, दूसरे के लिए income. Okay. But there is in a section 40 small b, it talks about how much is to be allowed as a deduction in the hands of firm. For an example, for the interest, the section says that only the 12% would be allowed as a deduction. The firm had paid a 14%. Okay. But the income tax would allow only 12% in the hands of firm as per section 40 small b. So how much is to be considered the income of the partner? Jitna firm ke haath mein expenditure, the same amount would be taxable in the hands of the partner as an income. So if the 12% is allowed as deduction, so in the hands of the partner, only the 12% would be taxable under the PGBP. So whatever amount of deduction would be available in the hands of the firm, same would be taxable in the hands of the partner. That is for the interest and remuneration. What about the share of profit? I already told you that. For the share of profit, the firm is not allowed as an expenditure, correct? It is not as an income of the partner. It is taxable in the hands of firm. Firm is paying 30% tax on that. So it is not taxable in the hands of partner. Have you clear with this? So what is the crux of this all? Huh? Yes, correct. The interest and remuneration paid by the firm to the partner to extent allowed under section 40 small b is taxable in the hands of the partner as in their PGBP income. Even there is a remuneration, salary, interest by whatever name, it is always to be taxed under the head of PGBP. What about the share of profit? No, it is exempt in the hands of partner. Correct. Good. Next, under section 10(2)(a), any sum received for not carrying out any activity related to the business, correct, or for not sharing know-how, Correct. Then the sum is to be taxable under the PGBP. Please do remember, it should not be a transfer of a know-how. It should be a fees received for non-sharing of a know-how. Correct. So that sum is to be taxable under the PGBP. If it is a transfer of a know-how copyright, then it is to be taxable under the head of capital gain. The next, if the capital asset is being treated as, the stock in trade has been treated as a capital asset. For an example, I am a builder. I have I had made a commercial complex. In that, one shop had kept as for me as a business premises. Means my stock in trade has been treated as a now capital asset. जहाँ पे builder का ये office बना दिया गया. Correct. So now that the stock in trade has become my capital asset. Correct. Actually, I did not earn anything. It is simply transferring from my one pocket to another pocket. Correct. Earlier, I used to treat as a stock in trade. Now, I am treating the same office as my capital asset. But PGBP says that this is to be taxable under the income tax under the PGBP under section 28. The fair market value of the inventory as on date on which it has been treated or converted into a capital asset. It is to be taxable under the PGBP. Simply, the stock in trade has been converted into the capital asset. I just given an example. Detail will be discussing out. Next, any compensation or any other payment due to or receivable on account of termination or modification of any terms of the contract. Already we are done with the contract. Okay, the A and B had been done with the contract. The B want to modify the contract. So the terms of some contract. So the A had asked for the compensation. So that compensation, whatever the received by the A, would be taxable under the PGBP irrespective of the fact whether that contract was a capital in the nature or revenue in nature. But let's try to understand this in due manner. The first, there must be a compensation. Okay, compensation किस लिए? It could be termination or modification in the terms of a contract. Correct. In any of these two cases, if I receive a compensation, it is to be taxable under the PGBP. First of all, do remember only the revenue incomes are to be taxable under the PGBP, not the capital receipt. Only the revenue receipts are to be taxable under the PGBP. It's only originally income making definition only says that the revenue income is to be taxed. Capital receipt is to be taxed only specifically under the capital gain chapter. Correct. Unless and until specific provide नहीं हो तो capital receipt कभी भी taxable नहीं होती है. Only the revenue receipts are taxable under the income tax. Capital receipt is specifically provided, then only it is to be taxed. Till the time it is not specifically provided, it should not be taxed under the PGBP. But for this specifically I had given all the types of contract, whether it is a capital or the revenue contract. If there is a change, modification in terms of contract or the contract has been terminated, correct, and if I received a compensation, then it is to be taxable under the PGBP. Next, but if the contract is related to the employment, correct, the employee is receiving something out of the modification or the employer is receiving something out of the modification in terms of contract, correct, then it is to be taxable under the IOS, not under the PGBP. Clear with it? Now I'll ask a question to you. There I had done a contract with the B. A had placed an order of a capital asset supply or the machineries to be supplied by 30th of April. Okay. If the initial terms of contract says that if B is not able to supply is on the 30th of April, he will be giving in the terms of the compensation, he will be providing me an amount of rupees at 2 lakh rupees for each day of delay. Okay. Now, by any of the reason, the B is not able to supply the plant or the machinery on the 30th of April, it had been supplied on the 2nd of May. So, he need to pay the compensation of 4 lakh. Now, the question is, for A it is an income, yes, whether that is to be taxable under the PGBP? That is in a question. Whether it is in a compensation, yes. Is it a change in terms of contract? No. Whether the termination of a contract? No. So this sum is not to be taxed under section 28. Okay, well, that is to be taxed under the capital gain head because it is in a capital receipt, because it is in a compensation out of the capital asset contract, that is to be taxable under the IOS, or that is to be taxable under the any other head, capital gain. Do you remember I told you that only the revenue receipts are to be taxable, the capital receipt are not. This is a capital receipt. It is not taxable until unless specifically given. So if that is taxable under the capital gain specifically, then only. But capital gain mein kya hona chahiye? There should be transfer of asset. So there is no transfer of asset. So this sum is not taxable under the capital gain, not taxable under the PGBP, not taxable under the IOS. Are you clear with this? Because it was not in a modification in the original terms, it was not termination of contract. Yahi agar hota, A had placed an order to the B and later on A says that I don't want that machinery, and for that A is compensatory to the B, then in the hands of B, that is to be taxable under section 28. Have you clear with it? Because that is a termination of any contract. It could be revenue or the capital. It is to be taxable under the PGBP. Have you clear? Please be careful. It is a termination or the modification of the terms of contract. Compensation hai, but किस लिए? It could be either termination or the modification. Correct? If any other compensation is there in the capital in the nature, then it is not to be taxable under the PGBP. Hopefully you are clear with this. Next, there is certain important one, the chargeability under the PGBP. There isn't any compensation has been received on what account. It could be on the account of the termination or the modification of the terms of contract, then it is to be taxable under the PGBP. Before coming to this point, try to understand, under the income tax, only the revenue receipts are taxable. Capital receipts are not taxable until and unless specifically provided under some sections. For an example, if I transfer a capital asset, मैंने कोई asset बेची, I sold out some asset, I got a capital receipt, that is to be taxable, not unless and until specifically given. A capital gain it is specifically given, such capital receipts are to be taxable. Correct? Then it would be taxable. अगर कुछ नहीं बोला है, if nothing has been told, then capital receipts are not taxable. All the revenue receipts are taxable unless and until specifically exempt. Okay. All the revenue receipts are to be taxable under the income tax unless and until specifically given it is exempt and not taxable. Capital receipt, exact opposite. Capital receipt are not taxable at all unless and until some section specifically says that it should be taxable. Clear with it? Now the question arises, under the PGBP, all the revenue incomes are to be taxable. What about the capital receipts? Capital receipts are not to be taxable जब तक specifically दिया नहीं है तब तक. What this section says that any compensation received for the termination or modification of contract, any type of contract, मतलब वो capital contract or the revenue contract, it may be capital or may be revenue. All the types of contracts में, if I receive any compensation for what? It could be for the termination of the contract or for the modification of the terms of contract. Then that sum is to be taxable under the PGBP. Even it is in a capital contract, cancel kiya, terminate kiya. For that, if I receive the compensation, it is to be taxable under the PGBP, under section 28. What if it is a revenue? It is definitely to be taxable. Revenue capital, it is always to be taxable. But try to understand over here. Suppose A had placed an order for a machinery to the B. The machinery is to be delivered by the 30th of April. But the B is not able to deliver on the 30th of April. He had been delivered on the 2nd of May. As per the terms of contract, if B does not deliver on a time, per day, he need to give a compensation of 10,000. So in this case, the B has to give an A compensation of 20,000. Contract किसका था? It is for the purchase of a capital asset. So ये compensation भी क्या हुआ? Capital receipt. Capital receipt का rule क्या है? Until unless specifically given it is taxable, तब तक tax नहीं होता है. PGBP में it won't be taxed until unless specifically given. अब ये 28 में ये बैठता है क्या? Whether it sits into this, यहाँ पे बैठता है, whether it sits into this clause, यहाँ पे sit down होता है, check it out. Whether it is in a modification of the terms of contract or is it in a termination of contract, nothing is there. It is not neither an a modification nor an a termination. It is simply compensation for not receiving of a capital asset on a time. Correct. So it won't fit over here. Correct. So it won't be taxable under the section 28. हाँ, यही contract में if it cancel it out the order only, you are not given on a time and the terms of contract says that A have a right to reject the order, correct, or A have a right to reject the order and taken a compensation for that, for the termination of contract, correct. So in that case that would be taxable, but it is simply the delay in a delivery, and for that if the B is giving a compensation, that cannot be taxed under the section 28 because the contract was for the purchase of capital asset. हाँ, यही it is an of a purchase of a stock in trade, and if it given a compensation of 20,000, definitely that 20,000 compensation would be taxable under the PGBP. Clear with it? Good. Next, chargeability under the PGBP. There are certain critical issues need to be understood. There are certain critical circumstances, whether critical examples, which have a little bit confusion whether that is to be taxable under the PGBP, salary, IOS. So I'll take on all that scenario at one place. In that the first, I am dealing in the shares. The shares are my stock in trade. While I am holding the shares, I receive the dividend. Okay, it could possible. So whether that dividend income is to be taxable under the PGBP or that is to be taxable under some other head. Logically, if I do speak it out, it should be taxable under the PGBP because I am receiving out of my stock in trade. Correct. But no. Why? Because the section 56 specifically says, specific prevail over the general. So the 56 specifically, all the dividends are to be taxable under the IOS. So this dividend is, even it is from my stock in trade, that is to be taxable under the IOS. The next one, rental income from the house property held as a stock in trade. Do always remember, if the any house property even is held as a stock in trade, builder रहने दो, income from the HP is always to be taxable under the HP, not under the PGBP. Correct. The next, interest received if the security is again held as a stock in trade. मैंने debentures held out किए as a stock in trade, मेरा business ही वही है. Correct. Held, dealing with the security, I receive the interest. If you do apply the same logic, won't be applicable of a dividend because 56 only talks about the dividend. It does not talks about the interest. Correct. So interest के लिए कोई specific section नहीं है, तो PGBP में आएगा because it is an income arising out of my business, arising out of my stock in trade. So it is to be taxable under the PGBP. I told you that there are certain confusing examples. All these are that I clubbed out all together. Next, winning from the lotteries. Winning from the lotteries is always to be taxable as an IOS. Correct. Even that is ना my regular business, वही मेरा business है, लॉटरी की टिकट खरीद के बैठो और चेक करते रहो लॉटरी लगी क्या, still that is to be taxable under the IOS. But there is an exceptional case. What is an exception? The lottery ticket got unsold. I am a dealer. मतलब मैं lottery ticket बेचने का agent हूँ. I am a seller of a lottery ticket. Certain lottery ticket got unsold. मतलब stock in trade and that has got unsold. And lottery लगी. And out of the lottery, जो ticket I am holding the ticket. It's my good luck. The lottery ticket which was an unsold, that owned the price. So now the question arises whether that is to be taxable under the IOS or the PGBP. Again, it is out of my stock in trade, so it is to be taxable under the PGBP. Next, salary and remuneration given to the partner. Already told, this is always to be taxed under the PGBP, but to extent it is allowed as an expenditure. जितना उसके लिए expenditure, उतना partner के लिए income. if the expenditure is he had given a remuneration of 50,000 but allowed under section 40B 40,000, करेक्ट. तो पार्टनर के हाथ में इनकम कितना होगा 40,000. जितना इसके लिए खर्चा उतना इसके लिए इनकम. इट्स वेरी क्लियर, करेक्ट. एंड दैट इज टू बी टैक्सेबल अंडर द PGBP. Have you clear with the chargeability? Yeah, all these examples are very interesting. Next one. After the chargeability, in our first part, we had seen the chargeability under section 28 and then second, the computation of the income under section 29. Actually, that section 29 does not give any specific format. It says that whatever the expenditure is to be allowed under section 30 to 37 should be deducted. Whatever expenditure disallowed under the disallowed sections, that should be disallowed, and you should compute the income. Correct? But for the purpose of a convenience, we had made a format for the computation of income under the PGBP. What is the format? We do have net profit as per the P&L. आप books of accounts maintain कर रहे हो, उसमें से आपका net profit P&L निकला होगा. From that you got a net profit figure. Okay, that net profit as in a base. Then in that you added out all the expenses which is debited to P&L but not allowed as a deduction. Correct? Why not allowed as deduction? क्योंकि PGBP में there are sections now for disallowed expenses. Correct? There are certain expenses to be disallowed under sections 40 small a, TDS नहीं किया, due date के पहले pay नहीं किया, then expenses will be disallowed. We'll be looking out in detail. Correct? So such all the disallowed expenditure which is debited to P&L, beta. Debited मतलब कि already minus किया है. But income taxes it is not allowed under the income tax. So add back. Okay. So it says that add back all the disallowed expenditure. The expenses which is not allowed under the income tax should be added back. Next, expenses not debited to P&L. Correct? But allowed as deduction. You had not debited to P&L, but that is allowed as deduction as per the section 30 to 37. Okay. Then such all expenses should be reduced. But debit नहीं हुए तो, अगर debit हुआ तो फिर से minus करेंगे क्या? नहीं. If it has not been debited, then I will be reducing. If it is already debited, nothing to do. Correct? If it is not debited, then I need to reduce it. The next, income not credited to P&L. जैसे मैंने deemed profit का example दिया. I done the recovery of the bad debt, but I not credited my P&L. But this amount is to be taxable under the PGBP under section 41. So this comes under the add. Income not credited to P&L, but it's to be taxed under the PGBP. Have you clear? That is to be added. Next, income credited to P&L. For an example, I received as dividend that has been credited to P&L, but that is not to be taxed under the PGBP. That is to be taxed under the IOS. Correct? So such income which is not to be taxed under the PGBP, or it could be exempt, agriculture income exempt है, but P&L के credit में आया है, तो मेरे net profit के calculation में it has been included, but it should not be taxed under the PGBP, so I should reduce such, so less. Have you clear with this add and less? This is very important while solving the big questions under the PGBP, which carries a 12 marks, 10 to 12 marks. What this says that? Yes, this says that add back. There are two add, two less. Expenses are credited. What is add? Expenses debited to P&L but not allowed. So add back. Expenses not debited to P&L but allowed था. तो minus कर दो बाबा अभी. Income credited to P&L but not taxable under the PGBP. Such income should be reduced. Correct? Income not credited to P&L but taxable under the PGBP. So all such income is need to be added. After all this adjustment, what you will get, it is nothing but profit to be taxable under the PGBP. Hopefully clear with that computation. So we are done with the section 28 and 29. 28 talks about the chargeability. Section 29 talks about the computation of income under the PGBP. Add less. Next one is expenditure is to be allowed under the income tax. From the 30 to 37 full sequence talk about the expenditure is to be allowed as a deduction. But ये अगर already debit हुए हैं P&L को, we need not to do anything, just write down a note. Okay, but if it has not been debited to P&L, correct, then we need to reduce it in a computation of income, because our base is a profit as calculated under the books of account. Books of account से जो P&L बना, that is our base. उसमें debit नहीं हुआ है तो minus. If already debited and allowed है, nothing to do. Correct? Just wrote down a note for it. So section 30 to 37 talks about expenditure which is allowed as a deduction under the PGBP. So we'll start with the first in that is section 30. That is talks about rent, rates and taxes of the premises. And 31 is of a similar kind of, that is insurance, repair of the plant and machinery. Section 30 talks about all expenses related to the premises, matlab building. And 31 talks about all the expenses related to the plant and machinery. Correct. So section 30 talks about the rent of the premises. Correct. If there is a tenant has to pay a rent of a premises, then it will be allowed as deduction. Correct. But the rent of the plant and machinery has not been covered by the 31. Correct. It cover only the insurance and repair. It does not cover the rent. तो रेंट का रिडक्शन नहीं मिलेगा क्या? मिलेगा, बट दैट इज अंडर सेक्शन 37. 37 रेसिडियल है. रेसिडियल मतलब जनरल डिडक्शन है. 30 to 36 मतलब स्पेसिफिक डिडक्शंस, स्पेशल लिस्ट दिया है. 37 talks about the general. All the expenses related to business would be allowed as deduction. It should be revenue in nature. All such expenditure is allowed under 37. So 31 में rent paid for the plant and machinery won't be allowed as deduction, but that would be allowed as deduction under section 37. Next, the municipal taxes and revenue paid related to the building is also allowed as deduction. Such things won't be there under the 31. Next, current repair is allowed as deduction, not the capital repair. Do remember, all the revenue incomes are to be taxable. All the revenue expenditure would be allowed as deduction. Unless and until specifically given, it would be allowed as deduction. देखो, revenue expenditure and revenue income would be taxable. Revenue income is taxable. Revenue expenditure would be allowed as deduction. Capital expenditure deduction would be allowed if the specific sections are there. Correct. Specially told about the capital expenditure, then only the deduction could be possible. Otherwise not. So generally the capital expenditure ke upar will get the depreciation. But if we won't get a deduction until unless specifically given. Under the PGBP section 35 it talks about all the capital expenditure deduction. Correct. So 35 में certain capital expenditure may allowed as deduction, but specifically दिया होगा वहाँ तो. If nothing specifically given, then capital expenditure के ऊपर deduction नहीं मिलता है. You can claim the depreciation. Correct. If you do satisfy section 32 conditions. Correct. देखो, it's very simple. Revenue expenditure would be allowed as deduction. Capital expenditure not allowed as deduction. एक तो you will get the depreciation under section 32, or that should be specifically given under section 35. Okay, you should, then only the capital expenditure could be get a deduction. Otherwise not. So the current repair, capital repair won't get a deduction. This is common for the plant and machinery as well. It is common for the building and the plant and machinery. But try to understand, if there is a tenant had done the repair, correct, so that would be allowed as deduction. If the repair cost is supposed to be borne by the tenant as per their initial understanding or initial agreement, then only it is allowed. मतलब original agreement में tenant need to bear the repair. If that is in a clause, correct, then deduction is possible. But if there is no clause, then the tenant cannot get deduction for the current repairs. Under section 30, they may get deduction under section 37. Correct, but not under section 30, because 30 specifically says that if he has to be undertaken and to bear the cost of the repair, मतलब there should be an understanding orally or in a written agreement should be there कि the repair would be borne by the tenant. Then only the section 30 would be allowed as a deduction. 30 and 31 is very simple. In simple term, 30 says that building ke related whatever the expenditure, it could be rent, it could be repair, it could be municipal taxes, yeah, or it could be a insurance would be allowed as deduction in section 30. But repair, current repair hona chahiye, municipal taxes should be paid. Otherwise there would be disallowed under section 43B. I will be discussing in detail 43B afterward, because that is the disallowed expenditure section. What about the 31? It talks about only plant and machinery. Plant and machinery के लिए कौन सा खर्चा allowed है? Actually repair and insurance under 31. If you had done with you had paid the rent, that is allowed under section 37, but not under the 31. Allowed है अलग section में, not under this section. Clear with this? This is all about the section 30 and 31.